Is it recording or no?
Yeah. But it says low battery.
This does?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just roll.
Sure.
Hey, I am Robbie Bear. This is the Family Guide podcast presented by Movieguide, here with Jeremy Carroll, and we are talking about how God commands us to be joyous. So I was thinking about something the other day, and you could probably tell that there's a trend among the different topics that we talk about on the podcast. But I was thinking about the fact that in the Bible, okay, it doesn't give you a choice, but it gives you a command, and it says, "Be joyous in all circumstances." And I find that really interesting that it commands you to be joyous in all circumstances. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not like hey, choose to be joyous in all circumstances or whatever, or you can possibly be joyous. It's like it's a command: be joyous in all circumstances. And I think that's like a really important thing to know in like our current times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because of the age of social media and the power of media itself is that it sells for you to never be content.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We live in an age where like it de-emphasizes contentment at all times. You know, like you see the Instagram star or the YouTube short star or the whatever, you know, the TikTok star who is succeeding in their one area or the thing you wanted to be able to do or whatever. They've got all the things, you know, the cars you want, the house you want, the kids you want, the thing, but the thing is that that's just not what the Bible asks of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it asks of us to be joyous in all circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really cool, crazy thing. And so I've been thinking more about like sort of the patterns of joy, because like if you look at like, look at Paul, like he gets beaten up and he's like singing praise songs in prison. Do you know what I mean? Like if there's like be joyous in all circumstances, that would be a high one right there. You know what I mean? Like that is not
he could have started a GoFundMe.
That's right.
Get Paul out. But yeah.
I just think that that's just really interesting. Like be joyous in all circumstances. And I've just been thinking about kind of like the systems and structures to do that. You know, I in college I did door-to-door sales, and it was one of those programs where they dropped you off in like a random city in the country. So it was thousands and thousands of miles away from home, literally on the opposite side of the country. And you had to knock on doors to find a place to live, and then you had to knock on enough doors to get enough money to live in that place.
This sounds like the Jehovah's Witness entry program.
It was we sold homework help books in the age of the internet, but like one of the things that they taught you was that like, hey, in every situation, because there was a lot, like you would see the worst of people. You know what I mean? Like people would send their dogs after you. People would like call the cops. Like you see the very worst of how people treat other people. You know what I mean? When it's just like you're just a young college kid, you know, just like trying to make money to pay for college. But you also saw some amazing people too. But the thing is that it was interesting because they even had like some processes to like teach you to like stay upbeat in those moments.
How to cope.
And like one of them was think about what's good, great, and wonderful in the situation. Okay, so like you had to like stop like thinking badly about it, and just think about like, hey, what was good and great and wonderful in the situation?
Yeah,
you know,
the Rottweiler was trying to be nice. Yeah.
And I think that like but you know, like that's a great point, because like the point isn't that the Rottweiler is nice. The point is, hey, you don't want to be Pollyanna.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you don't want to like you don't want to blue sky it where you're just like, oh my gosh, it's hail and snow, and you're like, it's such a beautiful blue sky. You don't want to lie about
realistic,
it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But like being honest about your situation, like it sucks. Like that, you know, I love that song from Blessing Offer, Brighter Days.
Yeah.
You know, and he played at the gala. And it's like, even when he was telling his story of like, man, he's blind. So like he realizes pain, but like, it's like, and he lost his sight.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, there's brighter days. it's like a beautiful, like you can still find joy in pain. It doesn't
Right.
mean that you don't recognize that there is bad situations or bad
Right.
things, but it's like to realize that like everything we have is a gift from
Yeah.
God. You know what I mean? Like everything we have is a blessing from God, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think going with that sort of like gratefulness and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'm going to be working through like sort of the practices. I can write a 5 habits of joyous people. No, I'm just kidding. I got to think I'm going to think through the patterns of it because there
Yeah.
are like there are patterns to like choosing joy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's like we talked about this maybe even the last podcast, but like, you know, oftentimes when you are seeking passion, like you say, hey, you want to do a job that you are passionate about,
Mm.
like you go follow your passion, you actually become a lot less happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like in all the research shows, like people are less happy when they do that, like very
Mm.
unhappy, as opposed to like just working really hard and becoming great at something. You
Mm.
have the most satisfaction, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you are a janitor. It doesn't matter where you are in the work thing.
Yeah.
You can have great joy and passion out of it. Actually, if you just work really hard and are
Mm-hmm.
willing, that came from Be So Good They Can't Ignore You. But a similar thing with happiness. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like this is big in relationships where people are always like, "Oh, I want to," are always like, "Is this making me happy? Am I happy in this
Yeah.
moment?" And
Which
it's like
instantly makes you
if
unhappy.
you're thinking about that, you're
Yeah.
unhappy,
Exactly.
and then you're always endlessly
Yeah.
searching for something
Searching.
you never find. When like really like in God's upside down kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
you become happy by like sacrificing. Like if I sacrifice and give 100% to my wife,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? There's like a joy in that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we become happier and
Yeah.
like, you know, there's a lot of research. Dr. Fagan is really famous from Catholic University where he'll talk about like, hey, people are happier after 15 years of marriage, like all of these sort of like statistics on things. But it's like a lot of it is you actually don't get the thing by striving for the thing,
Mm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's interesting because like our current society, it pushes so hard on the striving. I mean, look at literally the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the pursuit of happiness, but that's not actually like what makes you happy.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And we were talking about the distinction between fulfillment and happiness. Like, I feel like happiness is the result of being fulfilled by doing something, like working hard at something and accomplishing it.
yeah, and doing something meaningful.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're totally right on that. And
Yeah.
you brought up a good point about like the generational
Mm-hmm.
thing, which will offend our listeners. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it feels like there's been a shift in maybe the more recent generation because they've been inundated with you need to pursue a bigger house, more cars, all these things, more wealth. Just get. And I think that we become jaded by that. And so like even our generation values like experiences and travel or those kind of things in relationships more than just getting the stuff. Kind of like what our parents would see as successful as like a big house and multiple cars and stuff like that. We've seen that in our face constantly on our phones and everything else. So now we're kind of like, well, all those people are miserable.
Yeah,
They're constantly trying to pursue that. I mean, my parents are not miserable, but
yeah. Yes, they're very
they're
happy.
not
actually.
constantly pursuing the bigger house. That's the point. But they,
Yeah,
that's the messaging we get.
It doesn't
so now
satisfy.
We're
I
jaded
mean,
by it.
the thing is that it's a mirage.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
always think that it will deliver, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. I mean, the devil is king of this. It's
Yeah.
like telling you, like,
Overpromise,
oh, if you do
underdeliver.
this, it will make you happier.
Yeah.
You know, if you, or whatever. But it never works.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that there are cultural movements. You know, there are cultural zeitgeists.
Yeah.
And during the '60s, there was this whole huge movement of like, hey, follow your desires, follow your passion, be happy. You know what I mean? And I think that we've seen, and there's a ton of research. I mean, Be So Good They Can't Ignore You was written by, I think he's getting like a PhD at MIT or something. And Algebra of Wealth is an NYU economics professor. Same thing. And it's like, we have a ton of research that it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like when you pursued happiness, when you pursued passion at work, or when you do those things, it didn't work. It didn't work. Like people were unhappy. And like there's so much research. I mean, both of those books are full of copious research. And the NYU guy is really funny because he's like, if someone tells you to pursue your passion, they're probably already rich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they probably didn't do it themselves.
They're
And
selling you a course on how to do it.
Yeah. And I just think that like it's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
like I mean, there's an age-old saying. It says the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the thing about joy.
Mm-hmm.
Is like if you say, I will be joyous when I get this job. I will be happy when I meet this person.
Yeah.
I will, then you're never going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to be, if you are single and unhappy, you're not going to be happy
Right.
by finding the person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you are unhappy,
Exactly.
like, it's not like in your, you're
not happy when you're single and
like
you
you
meet a
have to-
person, you're both going to be miserable.
Yeah. You have to choose happiness.
Or content,
I mean, not choose happiness, choose joy.
Right.
You have to choose
Joy.
choose joy. You know what I mean? And I think that the key element of joy is knowing that like what we have is a gift,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Being thankful.
God has a plan for everything.
Yeah.
I think if you know that like, hey, wherever I am, whatever is happening is planned by the creator of the universe and he loves me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not a blue meanie trying to crush the ants on the ground. It's someone who created us and loves us.
Yeah.
So I think that if we come with the mindset of like, hey, he loves me and wherever he has me in that moment, he has a plan for me.
Mm.
You know what I mean? He has a reason why we are both sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why each of you are listening to this. You know, that is within God's plan.
Right. Well, along those lines, that really elevates like even the mundane. I feel like too. You can be content in the mundane when you know it's all part of the plan. You know.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, God says like, "He who's faithful with a little will be faithful with much."
Yeah.
And I found like some of the most beautiful, incredible, powerful things in my life came from very small things that I never expected them to be big things.
Yeah.
You know, I remember being on the subway with a dude overseas and like just talking to him about the gospel for like moments on the subway. And then like years later, like finding out, oh, the dude actually became a Christian.
So
You know
cool.
what I mean?
Yeah.
From that conversation, because I saw it on Facebook. But it's like, you never know. There's the small little moments
Yeah.
often are the things that like pay off in a huge way that you have no understanding of later.
Yeah.
And I think that like, that's why like he says, be content in all circumstances. Because in a way it's just saying like, you have this, God. Like you are in charge. You know my beginning and you know my end.
Yeah.
And you love me. You know what I mean? You knew the perfect person for me to be able to find. You know what I mean? You knew like what I need to be able to do along the way. And it doesn't mean that there's not bumpiness, and it doesn't mean that the devil's not working on against that. Or, you know, the church typically says the world, the flesh, the devil.
Right.
You know, sometimes God's punishment. But like it just with that idea that like God loves me. You know what I mean? He has a plan for me. There is a purpose in what's happening. You know, can give you joy. And that everything is a gift. You know what I mean? Life itself is a gift. Breath is a gift. You know? And I just find that really fascinating about the fact that like God doesn't say, it's not like a suggestion.
Yeah.
It says, be joyous in all circumstances.
Because he's got this.
Yeah.
You know.
He's got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that is amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's true even like, you know, I have little, you know, younger kids and as you do and talk to them about different things. But one of the things I was kind of talking to them about is like, even when you go into an event and you're like, they're like freaked out because it's like a new place and they need to meet people or whatever. And it's like, man, who's always the most fun or interesting person in any event? It's the person who feels deeply content in themselves. Do you know what I mean? Because they're like joyous in that moment. And like, I've realized like a lot of times when I go into places and it's like, I'm not trying to get something out of it or whatever. I'm just loving on people and talking to people and having fun and being nice. It's like the most, like you end up getting the most out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Through those experiences in the upside down kingdom.
I just sit in the corner on my phone at those events. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think you're totally right. When you know that God's got it, you're free to be who you're meant to be, you know? You're not trying to be someone else to attain anything or gain anything because you know it's already taken care of.
Yeah. But like I think that like you have to work on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like no matter what. And like, you know, one of my favorite things is I got to meet one of the guys from the Free Burma Rangers. You know, and they're all like special forces people who do incredible things around the
those guys are
world to
awesome.
save people in incredible ways, and they're charismatic and like and I loved his statement where he was just like, look, you could do the most courageous act in the world and the next moment do the most cowardly act. You know? And so it's like you have to choose courage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to choose it every time. You have to fight for courage every moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is same with joy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because it's the same thing. Like, we have to choose to trust God.
Yeah.
Over and over again. And I think the funny thing is, as you get older, you feel like it should get easier, but it's always still just as hard.
Yeah.
Like, I remember as a little kid, I feel like it was really easy.
Yeah.
And like, I just remember thinking like, man, why were the Israelites so dumb about it? Like, why do they keep doing that?
Yeah.
And then it's like, when you're older, you're just like, man, I have seen some of the greatest miracles ever.
Yeah.
I've seen like absolute Marvel level, like Marvel movie level stuff, you know what I mean, happen. And that's incredible and awesome. You know what I mean? But still, like, the next time you'd be like, is it possible for me to get a good parking spot? Would there possibly be? And maybe God doesn't want us to have a good parking spot, but it's like, you're just like, okay, can you even work in this parking situation? You know what I mean? And it's like, you have to like you have to re-fight that fight every time to know God is God. He loves us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I guess that's part of the
spiritual discipline.
Yeah, spiritual disciplines of faith. Like, read the Bible, pray, pray frequently, go to church.
There's a reason why you got to do those things, you know.
Worship.
Yeah.
You know, and there.
Totally, for sure. And if you like this stuff, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe while you're here for more content like this. And now back to the show.
But the thing is that like all of the media is trying to sell you on more.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's like everything is trying to sell you on like, oh, you need this.
Social media is nuts because you literally will follow the company selling you something.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to follow Tesla.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's a new one out. What the heck?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You're following it.
Right.
There's
or
a new
Apple
Coca-Cola
or
flavor.
It's like,
anything.
oh my gosh.
All of them. It's all marketing.
Right.
But we're like, oh, it's social
It's
media.
like, I
Share
need
this.
that thing so badly.
Yeah.
It's like, do I really need it? I actually don't need it.
You know what I realize is you get the Christmas catalogs when you were a kid and you go in there and you're circling things and all that stuff. That's what Instagram is for me all the time now.
Yeah.
I just looking at
I know.
But the price on everything went way too high.
Yeah.
But then you feel like discontent in what you have.
Thanks, inflation.
Just because you're constantly digging through that catalog going, oh, all the toys I have now are not fun. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's just not good.
No, it's totally negative. It's funny because one of our friends is an Instagram influencer that has like a pretty big following. The wife is. And I love it because I'm like friends with the husband.
Yeah.
And so it's just so interesting because like you'll have these times like where you'll see like the perfect. I remember one time, I think it was my wife was like, look, they had the most perfect birthday party. You know, it'd be so great if we were able to have a birthday party like that. And usually, I mean, my wife is amazing. It's, you know, there are only few moments like these. Wife. Maybe cut that out. No. But like, I was like, oh, well, this is the photo he has on the thing. And it's all chaos and like a thing. And it's like, these are highly manicured. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
these are illusions. These are the oasis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with all of that stuff. Like, like on YouTube, there's a big kind of like success. I don't know what that guy deemed it, but it's like all these people are like, I am 39 and a billionaire.
Yeah.
You know, these are the thing. And it's like, okay, you know what I mean? Who knows? Like who knows in the mix of it, and who knows how much of it is real or not, you know, in the mix of it.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things of like, hey, be faithful.
Yeah.
You know, walk with your God, you know, like
part of that discipline.
Choose joy, you know.
Part of that discipline is probably abstaining from stuff that makes you compare yourself to others.
Right. Comparison is the thief of joy, they say. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And I think that I mean, we just live in the weirdest time in human. I think we live in the greatest time in all human history, but we also live in the weirdest, where it's like no other time in human history would you hear about like people across the world or across the country, doing these things or whatever. Or I was talking to a friend and he was saying like, no other time in your ministry would you like be married and still like see random people you dated from like a decade ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what they're doing
Follow
and
their
blah, blah, blah.
lives. Yeah.
It's just like, what a weird moment. You know what I mean? And I do almost feel like there's almost a call in a way to be like more focused on the things around you. Do you know what I mean? The people you work with, the community that you're in, like the church you go to, like that.
Yeah.
That like you to step back from that, because I do think that's hard, and almost even there are certain burdens we're not intended to carry. Like we're not intended to carry like the random news story about the person in, Montana who got shot, or whatever. Like you're not intended to carry that story. You know what I mean? You're not intended to carry that burden or brokenness.
Yeah.
Like you're intended to walk life with the people around you,
You're not supposed to know about the one person that had the piano fall on them, and now you're looking for pianos everywhere you
That's
go.
right. And I think those are all like, fear, again, another thing that tries to steal joy,
Yep.
And news media is the king of fear. And so, I don't know. We'll work through it. Maybe we'll have other talks about it, but I'm trying to work through the habits of joy.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is the spiritual disciplines. I think that's a great point about like, hey, read your Bible, pray to God, And I think part of it is that, hey, I trust God. He's in charge. He loves me. You know what I mean? I remember before I was married, I was like, does God love me? Where's my wife? Where can I find a wife? You know what I mean? But he knew, you know what I mean? And everything feels insurmountable to us.
Yeah.
But it's all within his plan of it, And so that's it.
That's why you go to movieguide.org for uplifting, inspirational content.
That's right. And God commands it, be joyous in all circumstances.
Thanks for watching the Family Guide podcast presented by Movie Guide. This has been Jeremy and Robbie. And please tune in next week for some more content. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and tell us what you want us to talk about in the next episode of the Family Guide podcast.
If you really appreciate this content, consider becoming a recurring supporter for as little as $7 a month. We are supported by users like you.